Welcome to the Michigan Association of Broadcasters award-winning Our State of Education here on 760 WJR, where we explore the future of Michigan's K-12 schools. I'm Lloyd Jackson, and I'm joined by my co-host Angelique Power, President and CEO of the Skillman Foundation. We're coming to you from the 2026 Mackinac Policy Conference on beautiful Mackinac Island. Our State of Education is a monthly conversation where students and teachers, parents and policymakers come together to talk about great developments happening in our schools. Angelique, what do we have to look for on today's show?
Well, as you said, Lloyd, we are actually here in the heart of the Mackinac Policy Conference. This is the spot where Michigan leaders are converging. They come every year, they grapple with the biggest issues, they bring some of the brightest ideas, and they're trying to propel our state forward. So we thought to ourselves, hey, our listeners want to hear what's going on here. So the theme is Quest for Common Ground. We've amassed powerful partners from different sectors who are going to sit down with us and talk to us what this looks like in motion.
Well, so whether you're in Detroit or the UP, a parent or a policymaker, this conversation is for you. This is the award-winning Our State of Education on 760 WJR. Welcome back to the award-winning Our State of Education here on 760 WJR, brought to you by the Skillman Foundation, which invests over $20 million each year to strengthen education for students in Detroit and across Michigan. Now, from the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island, to guide us into today's conversation, here's your host, Skillman President and CEO, Angelique Power.
Thank you so much, Lloyd. So joining us today, we have the inimitable Gary Torgo, chairman of the board of Huntington Bank. Gary is not only an influential business person, but you're a prominent community leader and a philanthropist. You're a deep thinker. You are a fantastic writer, which I have told you on many occasions. I've had the pleasure of working with you closely when you served on the Skillman board. And I've also been able to witness firsthand how expansive your mind is and how huge your heart is. Thank you for joining us on Our State of Education.
My great pleasure, Angelique. Wonderful to see you. Thank you for all the work that the Skillman Foundation is doing and for your leadership, which is amazing. During my time on your board, I watched you lift the Skillman Foundation, the city of Detroit, and youth, and we could not be more grateful to you.
Thank you, Gary. So Huntington Bank is a bank, and yet it has a mission that's more expansive than many banks aspire to. In fact, it isn't just about dollars accrued and financing secured. The core purpose and mission, and I'm quoting from what I looked up prominently on your website, is, quote, to make people's lives better, help businesses thrive, and strengthen the communities that we serve, unquote. So this isn't just a slogan. Anyone who knows you knows that you invest your social and your moral capital as well, and you are trying to make people's lives better both inside and outside of the realm of banking. So a personal question to start, where does this desire to help and serve come from?
Well, first, I have the opportunity to work for a great organization, Huntington Bank. We're the 10th largest bank in the U.S. today, and all of those slogans that you quoted are real. We are investing hugely in communities all across America, and Detroit is a main focus for us and for me. And we have done things as a bank that are not the usual bank standard. We are doing everything we can to lift up communities, and that's one of the reasons that I stay at the bank, is because I see that promise from our CEO, Steve Steinauer, and our leadership. For me, it comes from a place where I grew up in a family where education was key. I was raised by a wonderful mother and a wonderful grandfather who understood that raising people, children, and communities was a key to everybody finding success. And when a community raises good people who desire to do good things, everybody succeeds around them. And so for me, it was very personal. It was personal growing up, and it's very personal today. We announced when we did our merger with TCF and Huntington a $40 billion community plan. We've probably spent $30 billion of that already.
Wow.
And it's really dedicated to lifting up communities and people and organizations. We're the largest SBA lender in the United States of America because we understand that small business is people trying to make a living and do good things, and that's really what runs America. And so education is at the core of all of that, and it's exactly as you do every day, Angelique, at Skillman. It's making sure that to the youth belongs the future is not just a slogan, but is a reality.
You know, staying on education, you have your SWAG Awards, which I'm hoping you'll talk to us about, and you also have a tremendous commitment to Yeshiva Beth Yehuda. So can you talk a little bit about what education means to you and why you invest so deeply?
You're talking about some of my favorite things. Mm-hmm. SWAG is a scholarship program that we initiated 10 years ago with the Michigan Chronicle and Hiram Jackson. It stands for Students Wired for Achievement and Greatness, and we have made it a important part of the fabric of Huntington Bank, and it's one of many scholarship programs we have from around the country. And what we did was we looked for an opportunity to lift up Detroit children who were moving into higher education. And we didn't give it to the 4 O's. We gave it to the 2.6 and the 2.8s and the 3 O's and the 3 2's. And we've given millions of dollars in scholarship money. This year is our 10th anniversary of the SWAG Awards. We're celebrating seeing what young people can do when they get a chance to get into higher education. We provide them with internships if they want it. We've given some of them jobs.
Wow.
We've loaned money to some of them as entrepreneurs who are doing business today.
Wow.
And it's been a tremendous opportunity. And Yeshiva Beth Yehuda is an institution that takes care of lots and lots of children from different parts of the spectrum. We've got a special needs program of over 400 children, which you're
is
familiar
outstanding.
with. You actually led a panel at our symposium on special needs. The goal is to give every single child the tools to be able to grow into the best adult that they can become, a young person who can grow into leadership in the community and can use those educational skills to bring up wonderful families, wonderful children, and to lift up the communities that are around them. We're doing these programs not only in Detroit, we're doing them in Dearborn and in Berkeley and in Southfield and many communities, because we really do believe, just as you do at the Skillman Foundation, that the highest investment is in the next generation.
Mm-hmm. We're at the Mackinac Policy Conference. The entire theme is a quest for common ground, and it does feel like we are in this polarized, bifurcated world right now. You seek partnerships with so many different types of people. It's kind of your calling card. Why do you do that, and what makes partnerships work?
What I have found is that when you get to know people, no matter how diverse that relationship is, no matter what community you come from, when you take care of each other, when you develop a level of civility, when you develop a level of kindness where you show everybody that you want to assist and help, it brings together communities that you can't do in any other way. And so those relationships, those deep connections, that effort for civility, that responsibility to kindness and to love and generosity is really what is going to secure the opportunity to get along with each other. We can't solve what's happening 6,000 miles away, but we could do a lot to solve how we feel on the ground in our communities. And so my goal is to embrace every community. There are so many people who want that embrace, who want that civility, who are looking deeply for that kindness. And when you do that, I have found, just like you have found, that when you bring communities together with commonality and with an effort to be able to take care of each other, you can solve lots and lots of problems that you can't solve in any other way.
I couldn't agree more. It's 5 years from now. You and I, we've just walked out of the Huntington Bank headquarters building. We're on Woodward Avenue. We're walking together and we're looking around. What are we seeing that's happened in the past 5 years that's changed the lives for residents and especially youth?
Well, we want to see more housing and more affordable housing. We want to see greater opportunity for jobs for our young people. We want to grow the economy with them in mind, to be able to train them in so many different ways. Wayne County, the CEO of Wayne County, Warren Evans, is working on an aviation training program. We have so many opportunities to train young people in the growing economic era that we live in. And our goal is, in the next 5 years, as we're walking down Woodward, to see not just the Huntington Bank Tower, but lots of places for opportunity for people to work. We can't just be subjective to our own businesses and our own industry. We have to grow as much as we can, because everybody's got different interests, and we want to bring those interests together. So I hope when you and I are walking down Woodward Avenue, we see lots of housing, we see lots of job opportunities, we see lots of training, we see people enjoying themselves and getting along with each other, and we see the broad diversity that we want so badly in our communities.
Gary Torgo, thank you for joining us today. It really feels like very special that while you run an investment space, you're talking to us about the investment of love and kindness and social capital into the world. That really makes such a big difference, and it moves me personally. So thank you for taking the time.
Our job is just like the Almighty takes care of His children. He wants us to take care of His children as well. And when we take care of the heavens children, they take care of us.
That's where we'll leave it for this segment of the MAB award-winning Our State of Education, powered by the Skillman Foundation, investing in brighter futures for Detroit's youth and students across Michigan. We'll continue with more from the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island next on 760 WJR. Welcome back to the Michigan Association of Broadcasters award-winning Our State of Education, brought to you by the Skillman Foundation, which believes student, parent, and teacher voices must be at the table when decisions are being made about our schools. We're back with our next special guest, and once again, from the Grand Hotel on Mackinac Island, here's your host, Angelique Power.
Thank you, Lloyd. I'm so excited. My next guest is Denise Brooks Williams, who is the Chief Operating Officer of Henry Ford Health System. Henry Ford employs more than 50,000 team members at more than 550 sites across Michigan. You deliver primary, preventative, specialty, urgent care, pharmacy, eye care, and a full suite of home and health and virtual care services. I actually grabbed you yesterday and was talking to you about my MyChart.
Yes, you did.
You have been headquartered in Detroit for more than a century, and in fact, I thought you had told me that the original teaching hospital started at Henry Ford. Is that right?
Yeah, so Henry Ford Health System started with Henry Ford Hospital, which has been in the community 111 years.
Wow.
Yeah, so that's the foundation of our system.
That is fantastic. So first, talk to us about you.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I know that you have this huge role at Henry Ford, but you also spend a lot of time at other places in community. What drives you to do what you do?
Oh, so to your point, native Detroiter. And so one commitment I have, of course, is to Detroit and making sure, not just from a health perspective, but that we're a whole community. And so I do spend my time, as you know, within the health system, but I'm also very privileged to be on several boards, nonprofit boards. One of them, of course, is the Kellogg Foundation. And so able through their mission and purpose to be able to partner with many communities and look at how we're lifting families. In addition to that, Teach for America, where my passion for education and youth and how I'm from a family of educators. Ironically, I'm the only one in healthcare. Everyone else is in education. And so that's a particular passion I have as well, because I do believe that that's how our future is going to be, realized, is through youth being able to be empowered. And then the arts. So I am also fortunate to be on the Detroit Institute of Arts and the Detroit Zoo Board. So I really do it through both my professional lens, but then also my volunteer service opportunity.
And they're so connected, right? Health and education.
Absolutely.
And we often think of them as two separate things. I did the best I could do in the introduction for Henry Ford, but there's so much more there to say about the hospital, including its project that's happening in Detroit. How do you describe where you work?
Yeah, so I describe Henry Ford Health as this amazing academic health system, but very community-based. So we've got 12 acute care facilities, which are located from Jackson, Michigan. We've got Genesee County. We, of course, have Detroit, 2 hospitals in Detroit now, because we have the east side with St. John, and then we have Henry Ford Hospital, but we also have Downriver. So we're in multiple communities. You mentioned our 550 sites. That's really ambulatory sites of care.
Okay.
So where it can be close, where people go to see usually their primary care physician, but you could also have a surgical procedure right in your community. So we have those opportunities in Royal Oak and in Plymouth. But when I describe us, I really think of Henry Ford as a system that's focused on wellness. People think of healthcare in the sense that maybe we're there just for illness, but we have a lot of community-based initiatives as well, prevention, screening, helping people to really understand numbers and signs and symptoms that can keep them healthy.
Yes. A lot of times people don't think about their health care until they have to.
Yeah.
But in the past year or so, I'd say that the conversation around healthcare and health benefits has ratcheted up to even like the average person. A lot of our listeners are paying attention to it.
Yeah.
In some ways, it's because of Medicaid, right? And the conversation around it and what that looks like and the impact that they will have, in particular, on children. 40% of Michigan's children are covered by Medicaid. Can you break it down for us in a way that we can understand like what's happening and what will the impact be of what's happening?
Yeah, I mean, there's a lot going on, as you said, from a national perspective. And as we know, Medicaid actually then comes to our states through block grants, and we make decisions around how that funding is going to be allocated. Unfortunately, Michigan is a state that sits at the bottom of reimbursement for Medicaid. You've also mentioned it's for vulnerable families. So a lot of the coverage is for children, but it is also for working adults that are working at a level where they don't have coverage. You asked earlier about, okay, what is Henry Ford? So we've come up with this concept of the future of health, and that's partnering very broadly to make sure that we have healthy communities. And Medicaid is not a direct part of that for us, but it's an indirect, right? Because our belief is if we can generate jobs. So Future of Health is partnering with Michigan State, the Gilbert Family Foundation, and the Pistons, revitalizing really a community, right? We're investing over $3 billion in Detroit. New hospitals are part of it, so that's $2 billion of it, but it's also going to stimulate the economy. It's going to look at education because we focused on how can we actually have career paths.
Yeah.
So help people to be able to understand what health professions are, how they can be a part of that. Doesn't solve the Medicaid issue, but it is our concept that says if we can have healthy communities where you have jobs, which we provide many of those in the city of Detroit, of course, you really are going to have communities be able to perhaps not be in the circumstance where they need the support, right,
Yes.
of the program. In the short term, of course, our policy team is working really hard at how we don't diminish where we are today. We need to at least preserve the coverage. And as you know, some of the elements of it are really related to what might be the requirements for people to actually qualify.
Yes.
So we'll still have Medicaid, we'll still have coverage, but we're working really hard to understand what will work requirements look like, because those have been in place at points in time in our history and they've gone away.
Yes.
They're coming back. And so we're really focused on how will we help families to navigate and understand what that looks like. The eligibility time frame used to be annual. Now that's going to be by two times a year. So it'll be every 6 months. That's another hardship potentially for families who sometimes might have housing instability, might not really understand, right, that when they just did it 6 months ago, if they don't do it again,
Yes.
they're not going to have, the certification. So some of the threats in the short term are around the requirements to qualify.
Yes.
And so we're working really hard from a community perspective. We have community health workers. We also have Health Alliance Plan, which is a part of the Henry Ford family as well. It's our health plan. So it really does. And we also have a Medicaid component to that. So we're able to help families in that way as well.
You're speaking about partnership and sort of innovating to help those that are outside of the hospital to interpret and bridge what's happening inside of the hospital. And this is our state of education. We focus on lots of education work. You guys are doing something very cool with high schools. Will you talk to us about it?
Absolutely. So we have several internship programs over the summer, of course, as you would imagine, as a health system, but one I'll call out specifically is Rise Med. And Rise Med is focused on high school seniors, really allowing them to explore health professions and really science in general, because they could be research scientists, they could choose to be physicians, nurses, but they're getting a year-long opportunity to be exposed. And what's really neat about the program is there are peer mentors. So medical students, nursing students, they actually serve to mentor the high school students.
Wow.
And they kind of go through this journey where they're able to meet with all the different elements of healthcare and what it really takes to run a system of care, but also how they can be a part of that.
Yes.
And what those requirements look like. We have programs that are in our Department of Surgery, which allows students to really understand what is this concept
That
of
is
surgery.
wild.
Yeah.
Isn't that wild?
It's amazing. It's
Especially in high school. I mean, I'm so excited to see in 10 years even
amazing. What
it will produce.
Absolutely.
So when you look at Detroit and you look at everything that's happening there, you think about Henry Ford's position and how you work with different parts of community. What are you watching that gives you hope?
Definitely. I think what gives me hope is, as the earlier part of our conversation, the fact that we have a city that's thriving. We have our new mayor, which is incredibly focused on neighborhoods, communities, families. You have partnership, as we said, education and health, right? So I think we have all the elements of a healthy, thriving community. So it makes me extremely hopeful.
Yes.
And then again, we have investment. And I don't say it because I work with Henry Ford Health. I say it because it is a major contribution to our community. So 111 years there, and my prayer is we'll be there 100 years more.
Thank you so much for joining us.
That brings us to the end of this segment, but there's much more ahead, so don't go anywhere. It's the award-winning Our State of Education, brought to you by the Skillman Foundation on 760 WJR. Welcome back to the award-winning Our State of Education, proudly sponsored by the Skillman Foundation, partnering with people to transform education and nurture the brilliance and power of Detroit youth. We're back now with another special guest from here at the 2026 Mackinac Policy Conference. And once again, here's Skillman CEO Angelique Power.
Thank you, Lloyd. So I learned something interesting recently, which is that purple is not a real color. It's actually an optical illusion. And so the eye takes in the light of blue and the light of red, and then it bends it to create the color purple, which I thought was super cool and interesting, being here in a purple state, being in this conversation that we're having about how do we build common ground, how do we sort of bend what we perceive as these polar opposites into a way of working. We can disagree on the best way to educate children, we can disagree on policy, but really we have to deliver for Michigan
Yes.
at the end of the day. And so I'm so excited for our next speaker. I want to pose to you, the former House Speaker Tom Leonard, who is joining us, this concept around common ground and how do we get there. But first, I want to say welcome to our State of Education.
Thank you. It is an honor to be here. I was excited when I got the invitation. Thank you.
How does Michigan get to the best set of ideas to transform education across our 800 plus school districts for our 1.2 million school kids?
So what I would say is, it's interesting you brought up this purple being an optical illusion. Okay.
Yeah.
Because I think that, and I've never heard that before, but it kind of feeds into what I wanted to say on a lot of these issues. And what I would say is, if we're going to find common ground, we as leaders, corporate leaders, civic leaders, political leaders, you name it, we have to be willing to have tough conversations. And what I'm seeing around this state, and I'm actually seeing on this island, is that we're not willing to have those conversations, okay? So I've heard multiple times the house is burning. And that is true. We're bottom 5 for unemployment. We're bottom 10 for income growth. Our education system is an absolute crisis, okay? But I have heard education mentioned with real solutions very little since I've been up here, because I feel like nobody wants to offend the person sitting next to them. You look at right now, one of the biggest issues I heard about when I was on the campaign trail is how high our energy rates are. Everyday people cannot pay their electricity bills, yet nobody's talking about electricity bills up here because God forbid we offend one of the 2 utilities that are up here on this island. Again, and I'm not trying to poke anybody, but what I'm saying is, as leaders, we have to be willing to have tough conversations about real policy ideas and not worried about offending the person to the left or to the right of us.
Well, I do want to give a plug for the panel we did yesterday about education, where there was a fiery panel before where people were pointing out what they thought were issues at the state level that needed to be changed. Our panel had state level folks working on education right
That's
after.
good to know.
And I felt like it was an opportunity to just say the things which don't often get said here. So you have a point about energy not being discussed, affordability and how that impacts education. You recently were running for governor, and you made the decision to not continue, but you had a policy plan and a way of talking about what you wanted to see happen. What was, first of all, the plan? And then why did you make the decision to not continue?
So when you look back at the plan, my number one priority, and I was very clear, and I've identified many of these problems that we're facing right now, and the state has a lot of challenges. One of my greatest fears, and as I talk to families across the state, is that one day one of my kids is going to come to me and say, Dad, I would love to stay in the greatest state in the entire country, but I have to leave because there's no opportunity for me here. Yes. In every policy that I put forward, whether somebody agreed with it or not, my goal was to make certain that we would implement policies that could keep our kids here. That was my ultimate goal. And when you look back at our campaign, I truly believe we had a winning message. I do believe that we can win a message on ideas. The problem is this: to reach the general electorate, you've got to have $10 to $12 million in the bank to get that message out. Yeah. We didn't have that. So then the plan B for us was going to be running a very aggressive social media campaign. Well, unfortunately, the only way you can run an aggressive social media campaign is not on issues, it's not on ideas, it's not on policies, it is gutter politics, it is theater, it is attacking others, it is putting together those 30-second TikTok videos. That's not me. I was not willing to do that. I wanted my kids to be proud of the campaign that their dad was running. I was not willing to go to that option B when I knew that was the only option left for us.
Ooh, and isn't that a shame? That really what we want is to hear what the best policies, ideas are. And in some ways, we only get to them through healthy debate about what they could be when people are in good faith debating.
I will, and I'll give you an example. So when I decided to get in the race, and I'm going to pick on my side of the aisle or somebody from my side of the aisle without naming them.
Which is,
okay, without
but
naming
which
them.
side of the aisle?
The Republican side of the aisle.
Okay, thank you.
Not to make this partisan. So before I got in the race, Janelle and I, and it was a team effort. Janelle's my lovely bride. Wonderful. I mean, I couldn't ask for anybody better, more support. Before we made this decision, I did a lot of listening and a lot of traveling because I wanted to see, was there going to be a candidate in the race that was presenting and putting forth ideas every day? And where I ultimately made the decision, you started out this interview on education.
Yes.
I was sitting at an event, and I saw a Republican candidate. Somebody stood up. They were frustrated, they were upset, they were sincere, and they asked this person sincerely, what are we going to do to solve this education crisis we have in this state? Mm-hmm. And the person's response was, we're going to re-implement the ABCs and get rid of the DEI. Mm-hmm. Now, what is that? That is nothing more than a 5-second talking point that solves nothing.
It's red meat.
And that was when we made that decision. I said, if we're going to do this, we're going to come to the table with real solutions. That's why, as part of our policy plan, we put forth a full education plan. Let's implement the Mississippi miracle. You look at what Mississippi has done, a state that 10 years ago was bottom 10 for their, or 49 out of 50 for their reading scores, and is now top 10 because of the right policies. You got to identify these kids earlier and figure out who's struggling. You got to get them targeted support and high quality tutors in those classrooms. You've got to empower parents, but frankly, you've got to make the tough decision to say, hey, if that child is not qualified and ready to go to the 4th grade, we've got to hold them back until they can read, because they spend these first 3 years learning to read, then they read to learn. And Angelique, I can tell you as a former prosecutor, and folks would gasp when I'd say it, but it's straight talk. As a former prosecutor, I know if a child drops out of school because they can't read, you've created a pipeline to a welfare check or a prison cell. We've got to have these conversations.
Yeah, thank you. Thank you for not just your passion, but your clarity of what needs to be done. A lot of the conversation has been with a gubernatorial candidate that dropped out who was independent, that there is no way for bipartisanship to happen. And so you have to either be a Republican or a Democrat, and that you're almost dinged if you want to leave fidelity to the party to find a policy that could work sustainably. Do you believe that's true?
I believe right now when you're, so there is certainly a fracture, if you will, amongst the parties, okay? I believe, number one, and I had said out of the gate, Mike Duggan is a friend of mine, okay? And the fact that he was bringing ideas to the table, I believe was a good thing. Now, he and I may not have agreed on a lot of them, but at least he was presenting ideas.
Right.
I said out of the gate that it was going to be very difficult, if not impossible, for him to win as an independent. And yeah, I looked at statistics. Since 1990, I believe there have been 590 gubernatorial elections across the country. Only 6 have ever been successful, and I don't believe there's ever been success in a state that has straight party ticket voting. So I knew that he was in for an uphill climb. But I think, politically, whether it's right or wrong, if an independent's going to win in this environment, I don't believe they can have a message, I want to show up and bring people together and bring the sides together. It's going to have to be a disruptor.
Yeah.
And the mayor that I know likely was not willing to do that. So I think that was his problem. If he was going to run as an independent, it couldn't be, I'm going to be the guy in Lansing that can make both sides work together.
Yeah.
It's basically got to be, throw the bums out. Let's go with somebody new.
Yeah. So quest for common ground, that's what we're talking about here. How do you do it in 1 minute or less?
It starts with civility and having those conversations. And I'll give you an example. One of my best friends in the legislature when I was House Speaker was then House Minority Leader Sam Singh. And he and I, we served together, we worked together. Nobody understood how we made it work the way that we did, given our political opposites, if you will. But he and I always treated each other with respect. We always trusted each other, so when we would have those serious debates on the floor, we could always come back together the next day, regardless of how heated things got. We could have that conversation about where to work together. That's how we eliminated driver responsibility fees in the state of Michigan and gave 75,000 people in Detroit their driver's licenses back, 350,000 people across the state, because he and I always were willing to work together. That's what you got to be willing to do.
Work on policies, work with people.
Never make it personal.
Never make it personal. Thank you so much for taking time to join us today. It's been a pleasure.
A lot of ground has been covered, but there's still more to unpack. Our final segment right after this break. You're listening to the MAB award-winning Our State of Education, brought to you by the Skillman Foundation on 760 WJR. Welcome back to the award-winning Our State of Education, sponsored by the Skillman Foundation, where we follow the will of Detroit youth to dream big and design new possibilities together. Angelique, let's turn it back over to you for you to introduce our final guest and continue the conversation.
Thank you, Lloyd. We are so excited to have Dr. Beverly Walker-Graffia. She is the director of MyLeap, the Michigan Department of Lifelong Education, Advancement, and Potential. This department looks at Michigan's public education system from preschool to post-secondary education. Dr. Walker-Graffia has so much deep experience in education policy, and she has a background in college administration. Most recently, she served as president of Mott Community College in Flint, where she made history as its first president emeritus and as the first female and first African-American president in the college's 100-year history. Welcome, Dr. Walker-Graffia.
Good morning. Good morning.
Nice to see you again. Yesterday, you were part of Skillman's panel here at the policy conference. You were joined by 2 other state education policy leaders, Dr. Maleko as well as Michelle Richard. Dr. Malekos, the state superintendent of schools, was on a different podcast with us, and the governor's senior education policy advisor is Michelle Richard. You spoke on that panel about these 3 different departments, and you talked a little bit about how they're collaborating. Can you describe for us, how is MyLeap working alongside the governor's office and the Michigan Department of Education?
Well, thank you, Angelique, for allowing me to be here today and really to talk about the great work of MyLeap and how we are working so closely with MDE, with the governor's office on so many types of policies and programming to help Michiganders. The governor set a clear vision for Michigan that every person should have a path to education, opportunity, and a good paying career right here in the state of Michigan. They shouldn't have to go anywhere else. MyLeap's role is to help connect the full education continuum from, as you stated, early childhood all the way to getting that post-secondary credential and going into the workforce. We work closely together with the governor's office and MDE because we have to. We can't be in a silo. Every portion of our departments has a place in making sure that our Michiganders have the opportunity to reach economic success and to really get their dreams met. And so MDE is bringing a deep leadership around K through 12 education and school systems. MyLeap strengthens that by making sure that we have, before they get to kindergarten, around that K through 12 experience, and then the post-secondary experience that really promotes the learning, the education that's going to be needed for all of the jobs for the future, which is critically important for the state. So together, we're just aligning around shared priorities like literacy, student support, post-secondary readiness, making sure that our students have this clear pathway, this continuum that's really taking them from learning to opportunity to the dreams that they had when they first woke up and said, I think I want to. And we can help them do that.
You have the spectrum of education under your purview. So I want to talk about 2 places where I'm seeing a lot of attention and effort. That's early child literacy, and then it's also college and career readiness. So can you describe this for us, the importance, first of all, of these 2 areas, and then an example of how different groups are coming together to work on solutions here?
So I'm so pleased to say that the governor's office, MDE, MyLeap are working together on literacy and college career readiness. You cannot separate those. Those 2 actually go together because they're so deeply connected with a strong reader being able to then take on the world, get the jobs of the future. So when we look at that continuum, we have to understand as Michiganders that everything starts from the very beginning. Everything. So when you're looking at all of this, you have from birth the parent reading to the child. But what are they reading? We are working with our family engagement centers to help our parents to understand career exploration starts from that very beginning. We have after-school type programs that are not just babysitting. It really is that they're just focused on also literacy, where they're getting the same types of literacy training that MDE is having, the letters training with theirs. Our folks are getting that same literacy training, but they're also getting giving career exploration for the students. Things like NASA, introducing them to science and what it takes, to be a scientist, and making it so it's not so hard, and it's a clear goal that they can reach. The end result is that when they're getting to the point of leaving high school, they have a plan. They've already vetted out very early with all the different role plays during pre-K for all of those kind of things of the careers. I like this, I don't like this. Ooh, now that was really fun. Those passions. They're building and understanding their strengths, their talents, their skill sets, which is great so that when they enter college or they enter an apprenticeship, they're going to make it, they're going to stick with that, and they're going to be the economic force for Michigan for the future. So it's all one plan, but we can't take literacy out of career readiness and college readiness. It all goes together. And so as the 3 entities working together, those departments, MDE, MILEAP, the governor's office. The governor sets that vision, helps with strategy, research. MDE, MILEAP, we just join in and make sure that we take that, build strategy with that, and act for Michiganders' success.
I think that's so important that you all partner together to help deliver on the governor's vision, and then you all partner with others to make that happen. And that is like, the theme here is a quest for common ground, but that's actually how you achieve it, is through working with others. You partner with parents and you partner with young people too. So can you describe for us, how are you listening to students and families, and how do you in your position work alongside them?
Well, it's very simple. We are always in the field listening and taking note of what our parents and our students are really talking about. Family input is so critically important. So when you look at that, we're talking about family engagement centers, actually being in with families in those critical times, helping them to understand, first of all, what are the things that we need you to be doing to help with the children, but giving us feedback on, well, this is what we need from the state to provide so that we can do that. That's how
real partnership.
Exactly. When we look at the research that we're always looking at, best practices, and we send out surveys, do focus groups at all different levels, not just for the early childhood, but we also do this at the after school, out of school time, and especially in our post-secondary arena. That's how we are learning so much about parents saying to us, we want our children to go to college, but we don't know how to do that. The FAFSA is tough. So, we come up with programs to help ensure that they can complete the FAFSA. They say to us, we need something to help with, keeping a job. I've got child care, I've got work responsibilities, I got personal. We come up with My Tri-Share, where the state pays a third, the employer pays a third, the parent pays a third. Free child, pre-K for all. That has certainly taken off. People think at times that, that's only for a limited amount of people. Pre-K for all is for everyone.
Right.
It doesn't have, an economic level to it.
And actually, we know that early child care is so expensive. I remember reading that this program puts $14,000 back in families' pockets every year. So it is for everyone, but it is also an economic boost for them too. Thank you for joining us today. We know you're busy running around the conference and you're busy doing the work you do all the time, so we appreciate you.
Thank you so much.
Whether you're a parent or policymaker, student or teacher, business leader or community member, your voice matters. Send us your thoughts and questions. We'll bring some of these to the show. Go to skillman.org/stateofed. That's skillman.org/stateofed. Thanks for joining us. We'll see you next month. More voices, more insight, more hope for the future of Michigan students on the Michigan Association of Broadcasters award-winning Our State of Education, only on 760 WJR.